The year was 2084. The world was not the same anymore. Cities were broken, skies were empty, and silence had become a part of human life. People no longer looked at the stars with dreams. They looked at them with fear. Because from those stars came death. From those stars came the hunters. For many years, strange alien ships had appeared above Earth. They were not here to talk, not here to make peace. They came to hunt. To them, humans were not equals. To them, humans were only prey, weak, fragile, and helpless. The first time the ships arrived, the world's armies tried to fight back. They sent missiles, planes, and every weapon they had. But nothing worked. The alien shields were too strong. The alien fire was too fast. Within days, great cities fell. New York, Tokyo, London, Paris. They all turned silent. The streets filled with ash, the air with smoke. Families ran to the underground, hiding in fear. Children grew up not knowing sunlight, not knowing freedom. They were told never to make noise, never to look at the sky, because the hunters were always watching. But in that silence, in that deep hopelessness, something strange began to happen. Humanity was learning. Humanity was adapting. Inside a hidden base, far below the ruins of an old city, a group of survivors lived together. They were not just soldiers. They were scientists, engineers, doctors, and teachers. They had lost their families, their homes, everything they loved. But they had not lost one thing, the will to survive. Every night, when the world above was silent, these survivors worked. Their lights glowed softly in the darkness, their machines whispered in secret, and their eyes stayed awake with determination. They studied the alien wrecks left behind after battles. They took apart broken pieces of alien metal, tried to understand strange wires and glowing crystals. At first it felt useless. Nothing made sense. The technology was too advanced. But slowly, step by step, they began to see patterns. One night, while examining a shard of alien armor, a young scientist named Aiden noticed something. A small crack in the design, a weakness that seemed out of place. His hands shook as he called the others. The room filled with whispers, with hope, with something humanity had not felt in years. Possibility. Was it true? Could it be real? A weakness in the hunters. The survivors tested again and again. They used old machines, rusty wires, even simple fire to see if the crack was real. And each time the results pointed to the same truth. The aliens were not perfect. Their armor could be broken. Their shield could be pierced. It was only a small discovery, a tiny light in a sea of darkness, but it was enough. Enough to make hearts beat faster. Enough to remind them that humans were not only prey. Above ground, the world was still silent. Alien ships still floated in the skies like dark shadows, their lights flashing as if watching every corner of Earth. People still hid in fear. But in that underground base, in that secret place of whispers and sparks, the first seeds of resistance were planted. Aiden and the others knew they could not act yet. They were still too weak, too unprepared. If the aliens found out, the entire base would be destroyed in seconds, so they kept working in silence. They shared nothing with the outside world. Not yet. Every day they hid their progress behind false signals, fake radio noise, and silence. The hunters above had no idea what was growing beneath their feet. And yet, even in secrecy, the survivors began to feel something powerful. When they walked through the underground halls, they no longer saw only fear in each other's eyes. They saw fire. When they heard the sound of footsteps, it was no longer the sound of running away. It was the sound of moving forward. Humanity was changing. The night air outside was cold. The ruins of the city stood like broken bones under the pale moonlight. Not a single bird sang. Not a single light shone from the windows. But in the silence, there was a new rhythm. The quiet before the storm. The hunters believed humanity was broken, finished, weak. But they did not know the truth. They did not know what was being built in the shadows. They did not know that prey can learn, that prey can grow, that prey can become something else. Something was coming, something the galaxy had never seen before. And when it arrived, the hunters would regret ever looking at Earth. The underground base had become the heart of a fragile dream. Days turned into nights, nights into weeks, and the survivors worked without stopping. Above them, the world was still broken, But below, something was growing. An idea. A hope. The weakness Aiden had found in the alien armor was small. It was not enough to win a war, not yet. But it was the first thread, and from that thread, the survivors began to weave a plan. They gathered in the meeting hall, a place lit only by old lanterns and the glow of damaged computer screens. The air was heavy with dust, the walls cracked with age. Yet inside that broken place, voices rose like sparks in the dark. "We cannot keep running forever," said Commander Hale, the leader of the base. His voice was low but firm. His face carried scars of the first battles, reminders of the days when Earth still believed it could fight with tanks and planes. "If what Aiden has found is true, then we have a chance. Not a big one, but a chance." The people in the room leaned forward. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, all of them knew the risk. If they acted too soon, if they revealed themselves, the hunters would wipe them out. But if they stayed silent forever, humanity would slowly die in the shadows. Aiden stood, holding the shard of alien armor in his hands. The piece glowed faintly, as if it still remembered the power it once carried. "Their shield is not perfect," he said, his voice shaking with both fear and excitement. "If we strike at the right place with the right force, we can break it." A silence filled the room. The only sound was the soft hum of the old machines. Then a whisper spread among the crowd, quiet at first, then louder. A whisper of hope. The whisper grew into a secret rumor across the base. People who had long accepted death began to imagine survival. Mothers told their children that maybe one day they could see the sun again. Soldiers who had given up on fighting sharpened their old weapons. Engineers sketched blueprints on scraps of paper. For the first time in years, life felt possible, but hope was dangerous. If the hunters sensed even the smallest sign of rebellion, they would crush it. Everyone knew that the aliens had ways of listening. Their ships could pick up signals, their machines could sense energy. One mistake, one sound too loud, and everything would end. So the survivors moved carefully. Messages were carried by hand, not by radio. Meetings were whispered in tunnels, not in open rooms. Every discovery was hidden behind silence. The base became a world of shadows, a place where every word mattered. And still, progress came. Aiden and the scientists built a small weapon, a prototype. It was nothing compared to alien power, just a rough machine made of scavenged parts. But it was the first human weapon designed not to run, but to strike back. They tested it in the deepest tunnels, far below the earth. The weapon hissed and sparked, its sound echoing like thunder in the stone walls. When it worked, when it pierced through a piece of alien metal, cheers filled the tunnels. For a brief moment, the base felt alive again. Yet with hope came fear. Commander Hale reminded them that this was only the beginning. "We have woken a fire," he said. "But fire can burn us just as easily. Until we are ready, this must remain a secret." Outside, the world still looked the same. Alien ships floated in the sky, their lights blinking coldly over the ruins of Earth. To the hunters, humanity was silent, weak, broken. But in truth, beneath their feet, something was stirring. In small corners of the base, children whispered to each other about the day the hunters would fall. Old men sharpened their knives not for survival, but for revenge. Women who had lost husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons sat in silence, their eyes glowing with a new fire. Humanity was changing, and then the first message left the base. Not by radio, not by machines. A young runner named Mira carried it on foot through tunnels and ruined streets across the bones of old cities. She carried the message to another hidden group of survivors. "There is a weakness. There is hope. Prepare." When she returned, breathless and shaking, she brought back not just news, but more whispers, more fire. Other groups were ready to rise. Other groups were waiting for a sign. The hunters had no idea. To them, the world was quiet. To them, the war was already won. But in the silence, humanity was writing a new story. It was only a whisper now, carried in shadows, hidden in fear. But whispers have power. Whispers can grow into voices. Voices can grow into a roar, and soon the galaxy would hear that roar. The whispers of hope had spread like fire in dry grass. What began in one hidden base was now moving through the ruins of Earth. Survivors who once stayed silent now dreamed of fighting back. Still, dreams alone could not win a war. Humanity needed proof that they could hurt the hunters. That proof came one cold night. The sky above the ruined city of Berlin was dark, covered with thick clouds. The moonlight barely touched the ground, leaving the streets in shadow. Buildings stood broken, their windows shattered like hollow eyes. In the silence, the sound of alien engines hummed above, a patrol ship circling slowly like a predator searching for movement. Inside a tunnel below the city, a small group prepared. They were not many, only 15 fighters. Some were soldiers, others were engineers or simple workers. Each of them carried scars, both on their bodies and in their hearts. They had lost families, homes, everything. Now they carried only one thing, courage. At the center of the group stood Commander Hale. His face was stern, his eyes sharp. Beside him was Aiden, holding the weapon he and the others had built. It was rough, ugly, made from broken parts of alien tech and human machines. But if their calculations were right, this weapon could pierce the shield of a hunter ship. "This is our chance," Hale whispered. His voice was steady, but his hands tightened around his rifle. "If we succeed, the world will know the hunters can bleed. If we fail—" He did not finish the sentence. Everyone already knew. Failure meant death, not just for them, but for all who dared to hope. The group climbed up into the ruins. The air was heavy with smoke, the streets cold with silence. Every step crunched softly on broken glass. They moved like shadows, careful, quiet. Above them, the alien patrol ship hovered, its lights sweeping across the city. The hum of its engines vibrated in their bones. Aiden set up the weapon on the remains of an old rooftop. His fingers trembled as he adjusted the wires, checking the glowing core inside. Mira, the young runner, crouched beside him, her eyes fixed on the sky. "Are you sure it will work?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "No," Aiden admitted, "but it has to." The patrol ship turned slowly, its massive shadow covering the city like a storm cloud. Lights scanned the streets below, searching. The group held their breath. Time was running out. "Now!" Hale ordered. Aiden pressed the trigger. The weapon roared to life, sparks shooting into the air. A beam of light burst forth, cutting across the sky. For a moment, nothing happened. The beam struck the patrol ship's shield, and the air shimmered. The fighters watched in silence, fear gripping their hearts. Then, the shield cracked. A sound like breaking glass filled the night. The patrol ship shuddered, its lights flickering wildly. And then, for the first time in history, an alien ship screamed. Fire exploded across its hull, tearing through its armor. The hunters had been hurt. The fighters stared in shock, then in awe. The impossible had happened. The weapon had worked, but the victory lasted only seconds. The patrol ship, though damaged, was not destroyed. Its engines roared louder, its weapons powered up. A beam of searing light shot downward, striking the rooftop where the group stood. The building shook violently, debris crashing down around them. "Move!" Hale shouted. The fighters scattered through the ruins as explosions lit the night. Mira pulled Aiden down a staircase just as fire ripped through the walls. Dust filled the air, choking their lungs. Above them, the ship raged, firing blindly into the city. Still, the damage was done. The hunters had been wounded. Humanity had proven it was not helpless. Even if the group did not survive, the message would spread. The hunters could be hurt. Through the chaos, Mira ran across the ruins, her feet pounding against the broken stone. In her hand, she carried not a weapon, but something just as powerful, a recording of the strike. Proof. She ran faster than she ever had before, chased by the echo of explosions. When she reached the tunnel entrance, she turned back once. The patrol ship burned above the city, flames licking across its armor. It would not fall tonight, but it would never forget, and neither would humanity. That night, the world changed. In secret bases, in ruined streets, in hidden tunnels, people whispered of the strike. They whispered of the moment when prey bit back. Children who had never smiled before laughed softly for the first time. Soldiers who had lost hope tightened their grips on their weapons. The hunters were not invincible. The first strike had been made. It was only the beginning. The night of the first strike spread like fire through the broken world. Survivors whispered the story in tunnels, in ruins, in hidden shelters. For the first time in years, people dared to smile. They dared to believe. Humanity had hurt the hunters. The impossible had happened, but hope always comes with a price. The hunters had been wounded, but they were not blind. They had seen the flash of human fire. They had felt their armor break, and they were furious. Within days, their revenge began. Skies filled with the sound of alien engines, louder than thunder. Ships that once patrolled slowly now swarmed in numbers. Beams of light tore through the ruins of cities, blasting away anything that moved. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to dust. Places where humans had once hidden were found and destroyed. In one small settlement outside the ruins of Paris, families were dragged into the open as alien ships hovered above. The hunters did not speak, did not question. They simply destroyed. Flames covered the streets. Cries echoed through the night. Mothers shielded their children. Fathers shouted in helpless rage. The hunters left nothing but silence behind. Word of the attacks reached the underground base. The survivors who had started the resistance listened in horror. Commander Hale stood before his people, his face heavy with guilt. "They know," he said, his voice low. "They know we struck them, and now they will make the world pay." Some in the base argued they should stop. "We cannot fight them," one man shouted. "Every time we try, they will destroy more of us. Our families will die for our pride," others refused. "If we do nothing, we will die anyway," Mira answered, her voice filled with fire. "At least if we fight, our deaths will mean something. At least our children will know we did not stay silent." The base split between fear and courage. But Hale knew the truth. There was no turning back. Once prey bites, the predator never forgets. Humanity had chosen its path, and that path was war. The days that followed were filled with pain. The hunters attacked relentlessly, searching for resistance cells. Many were caught. Entire groups of survivors vanished in fire. Messages stopped coming. Places that had whispered hope now whispered only silence. Mira carried news from across the ruins, tragedy after tragedy. "The settlement in Rome is gone," she whispered one night, her eyes wet with tears. In New Delhi, they found the tunnels. "Everyone is dead," each word cut deeper than any blade. Aiden, who had built the first weapon, could not sleep. He sat alone in the workshop, staring at the broken shards of alien armor. His hands trembled as he whispered to himself, "Was it my fault? Did I bring this on them?" But then he remembered the faces of children, smiling when they heard of the first strike. He remembered the fire in Mira's eyes, the determination in Hale's voice. And he knew. Humanity could not go back. The base grew quieter. Meals were eaten in silence. Nights were sleepless, filled with the distant sound of explosions above. People carried grief in their eyes, but beneath that grief burned something stronger. Not just hope, rage. For every life lost, 100 hearts turned harder. For every city burned, 100 hands reached for weapons. Humanity was bleeding, but in that blood, something new was being born. One evening, Hale gathered the survivors again. His voice carried through the tunnels like steel. "We cannot escape the price of resistance. The hunters will strike us again and again. They will burn our cities, they will kill our people. But hear me. Every strike only makes us stronger. Every death plants a seed. We are no longer prey hiding in the dark. We are becoming something else." The room was silent, but no longer with fear. Silent with determination. Silent with the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Outside, the world was still burning. Flames lit the skies above ruined cities. The hunters believed they were breaking humanity. But deep inside the shadows, the truth was different. The more the hunters attacked, the more humanity changed. Pain turned to fire. Tears turned to steel. Loss turned to rage. The price of resistance was high. Too high for some, but for the rest, it was the beginning of transformation. The prey was bleeding, but the predator was being born. The hunters thought they had crushed humanity. Their ships burned cities. Their weapons tore through tunnels. Their wrath fell heavy on the earth. But destruction does not always kill hope. Sometimes it plants something stronger. Among the ruins of an ancient city, hidden deep under broken stone, survivors found something extraordinary. It began with Mira. She was carrying messages through the ruins of Istanbul when she stumbled into a forgotten chamber. sealed for centuries. The walls were covered in dust and carvings, symbols that did not belong to any modern language. At the center of the chamber stood a massive sphere, glowing faintly, as if alive. Mira froze, her breath caught in her chest. The sphere pulsed with light, soft and slow, like the heartbeat of a giant. She reached out, her fingers trembling. The moment her hand touched the surface, the chamber lit up. The carvings glowed, the air hummed, and the stone walls shook. When she returned to the base, Mira led Aiden and Commander Hale back to the chamber. Together they studied the strange sphere. It was not alien, not like the Hunter's machines. And it was not human either. It was something older. Something buried in the earth long before the war. "This isn't theirs," Aiden whispered as he examined the glowing surface. This belongs to us." Weeks of study followed. The sphere held technology unlike anything they had seen. It responded to human touch, human voice, even human thought. Inside its walls, they discovered weapons, energy systems, and designs for machines far beyond Earth's science. It was as if the planet itself had hidden a gift, waiting for the day humanity would need it. At first, the survivors did not believe it. Could it be real? Could Earth truly have its own legacy of power? But the more they tested, the clearer it became. Humanity was not weak. Humanity had always carried something inside it, something sleeping, waiting to wake. The awakening began in secret. Using the technology from the sphere, the survivors built new weapons. Not rough, broken machines like before, but powerful tools of war. Weapons that glowed with energy, shields that could bend light, engines that could roar against the skies. For the first time, human weapons did not feel fragile. They felt alive. Hope turned into determination. Determination turned into fire. People who once whispered in fear now worked with pride. The tunnels filled with the sound of hammering metal, the glow of new machines, the roar of engines being tested. When the first new ship rose from the underground, the survivors stood in silence. It was not large, not like the alien ships, but it was human. Its wings shone with the light of the sphere's energy. Its engines growled with a power that felt like the voice of Earth itself. Mira touched the ship's side, her eyes shining. "This is it," she whispered. "This is the beginning." The awakening spread across the world. Other survivor groups, once afraid to fight, heard of the discovery. They traveled to the ancient chamber, shared the technology, and began building their own weapons. What started as a single whisper in one ruined city grew into a roar across the planet. The hunters noticed the change. Their patrols began to meet resistance. Small human ships rose from the shadows, striking fast, disappearing before they could be destroyed. Human weapons pierced shields, cut through armor. The hunters who once hunted freely now tasted fear, but with power came sacrifice. Every battle cost lives. Every victory came with loss. Ships fell, fighters burned, families wept. Yet something was different now. The grief did not break humanity. It fueled them. For every life lost, more people joined the fight. For every ship destroyed, 2 more were built. Commander Hale watched it all with sharp eyes. "This is what we were meant for," he said one night, standing before the glowing sphere. "They thought we would stay prey forever. They were wrong. We were only sleeping now. We are awake." And awake humanity was. The hunters had ruled the skies for years, their shadows covering Earth. But now, in the night, human ships rose like sparks. The skies that once carried fear now carried fire. The awakening had begun, and with it, the galaxy would soon learn that humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was no longer running. Humanity was ready to rise. The world that once trembled in silence was now alive with fire. For years, humans had hidden underground, whispering in fear of the hunters above. But now the whispers had turned into roars. The awakening had changed everything. Across the ruins of the Earth, hidden factories were alive with light. Sparks flew as engineers built weapons with shaking hands. Children who once cried in darkness now laughed at the sight of glowing human ships rising into the sky. The sound of hammers and engines filled the tunnels. Humanity had found its strength. Commander Hale stood at the edge of a launch platform inside the underground base. Before him, 3 new ships stood ready. They were not as big as alien cruisers, but they were fast, sharp, and alive with power from the ancient sphere. Their wings shimmered with strange energy. Their engines burned like fire in the dark. "These are not just machines," Hale said to his fighters. His voice echoed through the chamber. "These are our teeth. For too long we have been prey. Tonight we hunt," the fighters roared in reply. Fear no longer ruled them. Rage and courage had taken its place. That night, the skies burned. Human ships rose from hidden bases across the planet. They attacked patrol ships, ambushed alien stations, and struck at weak points. For the first time, the hunters were not in control. Their once calm patrols turned into desperate fights. Their shields cracked, their armor burned. In the skies over ruined Los Angeles, a battle raged. 3 human ships, small but fierce, flew through the night like sparks of fire. Behind them, 2 alien hunters chased, their weapons firing beams of light. Mira piloted one of the ships, her eyes locked forward, her hands gripping the controls. "Left now," Aiden's voice shouted over the radio. Mira spun sharply, her ship twisting between 2 collapsed skyscrapers. The alien fire missed, striking the ruins below. The ground shook, dust rising into the air. Aiden, flying close behind, activated the new weapon they had built. A beam of human energy shot forward, cutting across the sky. It struck the alien ship's shield, and for the second time that night, Mira saw it happen. The impossible. The shield broke. Flames erupted across the alien hull. The hunters screamed, their ship spiraling downward before exploding in a blast of light. Mira smiled for the first time in years. One down, but victory did not come without pain. The second alien ship fired back, its beam striking the wing of a human fighter. The ship spun out of control, crashing into the ruins below. A ball of fire lit the night, and the fighters screamed in rage. The war was brutal. For every alien ship destroyed, human ships fell too. For every cheer of victory, there was the cry of loss. But something was different now. When humans saw their comrades fall, they did not stop. They fought harder. The hunters felt it. The prey was no longer afraid. The prey was fighting with fire. Across the galaxy, alien commanders sent warnings to each other. Reports told of human attacks, human weapons, human rage. The species they once thought weak had become dangerous. But on Earth, the survivors did not celebrate yet. Commander Hale reminded them of the truth. "We are stronger, yes," he told his fighters after the battle. "But strength alone will not win this war. They will come for us with everything they have. We must be ready." The room was quiet, filled with tired faces covered in sweat and ash. Yet behind their exhaustion burned fire. No one wanted to hide anymore. No one wanted to live as prey. Aiden sat beside the glowing sphere that night, his hand resting on its surface. He thought of all who had died, all who had been lost. His heart was heavy, but his eyes were sharp. "We will not stop," he whispered. "We cannot stop." "Not now." Outside, the night sky glowed with both fire and smoke. The hunters had learned to fear the humans. The balance of power was shifting. Fear was gone. Fire had taken its place, and soon the galaxy would face that fire. The war had reached its peak. For months, battles raged across the ruins of Earth. Human ships rose like sparks in the night, striking at alien patrols, cutting through shields and disappearing into the shadows. The hunters, once untouchable, now fought with desperation. But the humans knew something was coming. The hunters would not let this go on forever. They would bring their full power. They would try to end humanity once and for all. And then, the day came. The sky above Earth darkened as a massive fleet of alien ships arrived. They covered the horizon, blotting out the sun, their engines roaring like thunder. The ground shook with their presence. It was the largest force the hunters had ever sent. The message was clear: destroy humanity completely. In the underground base, Commander Hale stood before his people. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with fire. "This is it," he said. "This is the battle that will decide everything. If we fall, the hunters will erase us from history. But if we stand, if we fight, the galaxy will know humanity's name." The fighters listened in silence, their hearts heavy but strong. Mira sat in her ship, her hands steady on the controls. Aiden stood by her side, checking the glowing weapons powered by the ancient sphere. Around them, the roar of engines filled the air as human ships prepared for launch. "Tonight," Hale shouted, his voice echoing across the chamber, "we are not prey. Tonight we are predators." The chamber erupted with a roar, the sound of humanity. The ships launched into the night, rising like fire into the dark sky. They flew in formation, small compared to the alien fleet, but filled with rage and courage. The hunters fired first, beams of light slicing through the air. Explosions shook the ground, burning through the ruins below, but the humans did not break. They flew straight into the storm. Mira's ship darted between alien beams, her eyes locked on the massive cruiser above. "Now, Aiden," she shouted. Aiden fired the new weapon, a beam of human energy brighter than lightning. It struck the cruiser's shield, and this time it did not crack. It shattered. The alien ship exploded in a flash of fire, pieces raining across the sky. Cheers filled the human radios. The impossible was happening again, but the battle was far from won. Alien ships swarmed from every direction, firing with fury. Human ships fell one by one, their flames lighting the night. The cries of fallen fighters echoed in the radios, but the survivors pressed on. For every ship that burned, another pushed forward. Commander Hale led the charge, his ship diving through enemy lines, firing relentlessly. "Push them back!" he roared. His voice was not just a command, it was the voice of Earth itself. The battle raged for hours. The sky above Earth was no longer dark. It was alive with fire, explosions, and the clash of machines. The sound of engines and weapons filled the air like thunder. The hunters, for the first time, began to retreat. And then the moment came. The largest alien ship, the flagship of the fleet, loomed above the battlefield. Its size dwarfed every other vessel, its weapons glowing with deadly power. If it remained, Earth would still fall. Hale knew what had to be done. He pushed his ship forward, charging straight at the flagship. His voice came over the radio, steady but final. "For humanity!" The fighters screamed for him to stop, but he did not. Hale's ship slammed into the flagship, his weapon firing at the same time. A massive explosion lit the sky, brighter than the sun. The flagship cracked, its core burning, before it finally collapsed in a roar of fire. The battlefield fell silent. The hunters, leaderless and broken, began to scatter. Their ships turned, retreating into the stars. The hunters were running. On the ground, survivors looked up at the burning sky. For the first time in years, the aliens were gone. For the first time, Earth belonged to humans again. Mira landed her ship beside the ruins of the base, her eyes filled with tears. Aiden stood beside her, watching the smoke rise into the night. They had lost so much. Too many lives, too many homes, but they had won. Humanity had roared, and the galaxy had heard it. From that day forward, Earth was no longer just a broken planet. It was a symbol, a warning, a promise. The hunters had thought humanity was weak. They had thought humans were only prey. But now the galaxy knew the truth. The prey had become the predator. The awakening was complete.